Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is Tuesday, April 22nd, and we are back this week for Transportation Tuesday. Now, as you can see, I am not at home in Colorado, but I am instead back in North Carolina for a few weeks. So we missed last week, just couldn't work out the logistics to get things filmed properly, but this week we have got several topics to talk about. And the thing for this week is money. Well, this type of stuff always is about money now, isn't it? But yes, we got big money. Some people are not paying their bills up in New York. While in Texas, the federal government, Sean Duffy, is taking away funding from a major project that was planned up there. And we got a few other minor stories to get into, but those are the big ones. So without further ado, let's get on from the intro and let's get into the transportation news for this week. All right, for this first story, you can already see the title. High-speed rail, Houston to Dallas. Funding has been pulled by the federal government. Let's take a look.
The administration also delivered a significant blow to the proposed project for a bullet train from Houston to Dallas. So the federal government terminated that $64 million planning grant for Amtrak 7 months after it was awarded. U.S. Department of Transportation says the cost estimates for this project jumped dramatically, and that is why they had to make that change. It also says that the Texas Central Railway proposal became dependent on money from Amtrak and from the federal government. Transportation leaders, though, say they expected this project to cost more than $40 billion, and they say that makes construction unrealistic and a bigger risk for the taxpayer.
All right, so that was pretty quick, but basically what the federal government is saying is that this is going to cost $40 billion, which is too much for the taxpayer. So the federal government shouldn't be paying for it. But let's get some further insight in the details of this project. So we got a second video on this. Let's take a look.
$60 million earmarked for a high-speed train between Dallas and Houston, now yanked by the U.S. Department of Transportation. The money helped Amtrak study the route and design the plan. The goal was to shuttle riders between the two cities in just 90 minutes. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy made the announcement, saying it saved taxpayer money, writing in part, quote, the Texas Central Railway project was proposed as a private venture. If the private sector believes this project is feasible, they should carry the pre-construction work forward rather than relying on Amtrak and the American taxpayer to bail them out.
All right, so you heard the statement from the federal government justifying why they pulled the funding. Their angle is that this project, as it originally was proposed, was a private sector project, but now it's gotten to the point where the federal government is investing in it and is spending a lot of money on it. So what do you guys think? Do you think that the federal government should be spending money on this, or is the Trump administration correct to pull the funding and force them to do it with private money? And just for some perspective, I want to show you guys where this project is, so you know exactly what we're talking about here before we go further with the video. So this is the website called texascentral.com, and you see they got a nice beautiful little page right here, and it says nearly 100,000 Texans, sometimes called supercommuters, travel back and forth between Houston and Dallas more than once per week. So they're building this 240-mile high-speed rail line that can get you on this trip in 90 minutes or less. And it's going to have a frequency of every 30 minutes during peak periods each day, and every hour during the off-peak hours. So that sounds pretty good, right? And then they have all the facts down here. You can check it out if you want to come read it on the website. And this is going to be completely grade separated. So unlike Brightline in Florida, where you got some grade crossings where the train has to slow down, this one will be completely on its own alignment. No slowdowns anywhere. It's showing the stations: North Texas, Brazos Valley, Houston. So 3 main stations. Let's take a look at the maps, because we like maps over here. So here's a general idea where the map is. Let's see. Okay. So it's going to go all the way from downtown Houston to downtown Dallas. And it's generally going to follow the 45 corridor, though, is not going to run adjacent to it. It's going to be on a similar path. So very direct route. Actually, very nice. Very nice. So here's a more detailed map if you guys want to zoom in and come check it out. Here's Dallas County at the top. You can see exactly where it's going to go. Very cool. Very cool. And then down here in Harris County, which is Houston. Okay, so it doesn't quite make it to downtown Houston, but it does get inside the 610 loop. Okay. So that's what the project is. And you guys can check out this website if you want to see any more information about it. Let's get back to the video.
1 year ago, then Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, remember that, Phil, appeared on Lone Star Politics and told us the Biden administration supported the project. He said it, quote, has enormous potential.
I think there is enormous potential in this vision, and I'll tell you why. Just the way that the population is laid out in this part of Texas, where you have two major population centers that are a long drive or a very short flight away from each other, that's an excellent candidate for high-speed rail. We see that all over the world, but the U.S., frankly, has been behind other countries when it comes to high-speed rail.
And now in the latest twist, a Fort Worth businessman and the new lead investor of the project, John Kleinheinz, believes.
And I do agree with the former Secretary of Transportation, Buttigieg, about that. Houston and Dallas, probably that Texas Triangle in general, is probably one of the few places in the U.S. where high-speed rail would be a good idea with the distance between them. He is right about that. That's the ideal location for high-speed rail in the U.S.
Can keep the plan alive.
To put a fine point on it for the committee, do you still believe that the project is alive?
Of course.
Okay.
On Thursday, his investment group, Kleinheinz Capital, told Texas lawmakers they hope to submit a project timeline by the end of the year.
We think it'll roughly take 6 months to complete the kind of finalization of the planning effort. And so what that involves, obviously, is re-looking at, the roads and re-looking at the utilities and re-looking at all the disruption that's going to take place over the 240-mile segment. We think that'll take roughly 6 months. During that time period, we would be working on the financing. We would be working on the application for the Surface Transportation Board final permit. And we would anticipate that we could get that stuff done, let's say, by the end of this year. If all of that stuff is approved by the end of this year, the build schedule, we think, will take between 80 and 86 months.
Gromer, that's a tough road. Remember, Texas Central first pitched the high-speed rail project back in 2009. But look, Gromer, Amtrak pulling this project is a big step back for this idea.
All right, so the federal government is out on this project, apparently. And I want to take a look at one more thing. Okay, so this part in particular, so this justification from the federal government is that this was proposed as a private venture, and if the private sector believes this project is feasible, they should carry the pre-construction work forward, rather than relying on Amtrak and the American taxpayer to bail them out. And Texas Central said they actually agree with Secretary Duffy and that they're going to carry it out without the federal government. Okay. And this was pitched in 2009. And it has ballooned past 30 billion, and the original estimate was 12 billion. And the U.S. Department of Transportation now says it's going to cost $40 billion to complete this. Okay. So this thing is going to be private. So we're going to see if the private sector can pull off high-speed rail between Dallas and Houston. So it is not dead. It's just the federal government is taking the federal dollars away from the project. But let me know what you guys think in the comments about that one. And let's get on with the next story. All right, so this next story is in New York, where tolls are not being paid. But this time it's not from an individual. It's from 3 companies. Let's check this out.
CBS News New York investigation. The New York State Thruway Authority says it is owed $70 million in unpaid tolls, and that is just from last year. And now they're heading to court to try and collect unpaid tolls from the last few years. Investigative reporter Tim McNicholas joins us now with how they're going to go about doing that.
Christine, 3 companies alone owe more than $1 million total, according to allegations and lawsuits brought by the New York State Thruway Authority. Now, all 3 are targets of the agency's new plan to sue what the Thruway Authority describes as some of the worst toll offenders. From Buffalo to Yonkers, the vast majority of drivers on the New York State Thruway, 96% to be exact, pay their tolls.
Tolls is something you got to pay.
Sometimes they got to be paid if we got to get the results of what we want.
But as for the other 4%, the New York State Thruway Authority chases after them with violation notices and debt collectors.
Can sometimes run up thousands and thousands of dollars in the case of commercial truckers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars.
The Thruway Authority says an Ossining-based company called Ride an Hour Incorporated owes $255,000 in tolls and fees. The Williamsburg Materials Corporation of Maspeth, $259,000, and the Northside Industrial Corporation of the Bronx, $506,000. They were all recently sued by the Thruway Authority.
There are others that were in the process of.
All right, guys. So, like these people said in the video, if you live in New York, then you are paying tolls and you should be used to it. Tolls are a way of life in New York and most of the Northeast. So what are these companies doing? Let me show you what we are talking about here. In New York, you have multiple toll roads. Now, all of them aren't operated by Thruway Authority, but the main ones in the state are Interstate 87, which the Thruway from down here in the New York City area all the way up to Albany is the New York Thruway. And as we talked about in the Interstate 90 video, the Thruway becomes I-90 all the way out to Buffalo. So it's that road that goes all the way across the state. That's the Thruway. So these companies are not paying tolls. They want to ride for free. And the government has to come and sue them to get their money back. But they want you to pay.
Various stages of litigation and going after. And again, our message is to those who don't pay your tolls, if you use the system, you need to pay. If you don't, you're simply stealing from us and you're impacting our ability to deliver that safe, reliable, and affordable highway.
None of the companies would agree to an on-camera interview, but the owner of Ride an Hour said over the phone he'd struggled with bills due to deaths in his family and the financial challenges of the pandemic. He said he's working with the Thruway Authority to try to pay off the debt. The Thruway Authority collects more than $800 million per year in tolls, and the vast majority of the money it uses to maintain the road comes from tolls.
They should pay because, I mean, either they pay or we do. So, I mean, it's a problem.
And the state of New York is now discussing a possible agreement with New Jersey and Pennsylvania to allow New York to request registration suspensions for frequent New York toll dodgers who are registered in those states and vice versa. New York already has such an agreement with the state of Massachusetts. Christine.
It's a lot of money.
Ooh, did you hear that last part? So if you live in Pennsylvania or New Jersey and you just drive on New York's toll roads and don't pay, New York is trying to iron out an agreement so that they can suspend your registration even if you don't live in New York. So if you owe the tolls, then just pay up. And I can't agree with these companies saying that we just can't afford to pay the tolls. Hey, we got GPS now. All you have to do is turn on avoid tolls and take the slower route if you don't want to pay. You know, you pay with your time or you pay with your money. So go get your money, New York. Cha-ching. All right, this next story is real quick. Out in California, the Pacific Coast Highway. You guys know what happened with the fires earlier this year. So we got a new section, well, a closed section of the Pacific Coast Highway is now going to be reopening. Let's check that out.
California's governor says the Pacific Coast Highway is set to reopen just in time for the summer. The highway closed to the public after the devastating Palisades fire. The only people who were allowed to use it were people who live in the fire-impacted area, essential businesses, and repair crews. But by the end of May, one lane in each direction will be open again to the public.
All right, so let me show you. Let's take a look at California. See what section we're talking about. How much of the Pacific Coast Highway is still closed? Okay, we see down here in Malibu, near Malibu. Okay, so it's completely closed here, so they must be talking about this area. So it's going to be open by May, which is perfect because I will be finally going to California to travel around and film this summer. So the Pacific Coast Highway will be open for us to check out. All right, so that's that. Pacific Coast Highway opening up in May, fully drivable once again. All right, now this next story, this is an interesting one. We always have at least one of these per week where someone is doing something a little strange, crazy, or weird on the highway. And this time it's someone who figured out a way to drive the wrong way on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. You cannot make this up. Let's look at this.
More about a devastating wrong-way crash in Bucks County. A 50-year-old motorcyclist was killed and another injured on the Northeast Extension yesterday morning. Dramatic video captured by another driver shows the moments right before the crash. Action News reporter Katie Cattrall live for us now from Bethlehem with the latest on the updates on the ongoing investigation. Katie.
Now, Shari, there are no charges at this time as the investigation continues into the fatal crash that left one person dead.
Okay, guess I'm doing this today. This is happening. What are you doing?
Whoa, look at that.
What are you doing?
Wow. Look at that. Like, how do you even imagine seeing that car coming at you and you're on a high-speed freeway like the Pennsylvania Turnpike? That is wild.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Viewer video shared with Action News shows a driver going the wrong way on the Northeast Extension. The person who took the video tells Action News they are too shaken up to go on camera after learning the woman driving this car is accused of killing a man.
She blew by me. It's not like she was doing 30. She was doing 70, 80, 90 miles an hour.
Pennsylvania State Police Troop T Pocono Station is investigating the crash that happened yesterday just after 9 a.m. Troopers were dispatched to I-476 northbound, mile marker 67 in Washington Township, Lehigh County. Police say a 24-year-old woman was behind the wheel of a 2019 Honda HR-V. Police say the woman from Perth Amboy, New Jersey, was driving southbound in the northbound lanes. That's where she's accused of striking two motorcycles out of a group of 6 that were driving together. A 50-year-old man from Bristol, Bucks County, riding a 2016 Harley-Davidson motorcycle, died at the scene. A 24-year-old man, also from Bristol, was injured and treated at the scene and then taken to a local hospital. The Lehigh County Coroner's Office has identified the man who died as John Joseph Sweeney. The driver of the Honda has minor injuries.
I was infuriated. She's potentially...
It's always the person drunk driving or doing something stupid that survives. Amazing how that happens, right? Amazing. So let's take a look at the map. I want to see where this is. I want to show you just how ridiculous you have to be to even drive on the wrong way on the turnpike. Now this is 476. So if you look at the interchanges on this highway, like just to get onto the wrong, to go the wrong way, like you got to do some crazy maneuvering to figure out a way to get on here in the wrong direction. So these are the northbound lanes. To get into a southbound motion, you will have to, I guess you can turn right here, drive the wrong way up through the toll booth. How in the world does she do that? And then come around. So this had to be intentional. So you can't even do this by accident. This is wild. So you had to go the wrong way through here, the wrong way through the toll booth with all this signage and driving past a bunch of other cars before you got into here and went the wrong way. And like the guy said, she was doing 80, 90 miles per hour. So this had to be like intentional. And it's unfortunate that she killed someone else when, you know, might have been better if she took herself out rather than someone else. So very unfortunate for that man on the motorcycle who she intentionally hit. And the other thing is that, you know, they identified the person who died, but they didn't identify the driver just yet. But yeah, this is crazy. Like, you have to do some crazy work to get on the wrong way on the turnpike. Like, these interchanges are not even standard. And the next interchange, I'm trying to figure out where she could have even gotten on. Yeah. Same thing with this one. It's the same design. So you will have to drive the wrong way through the toll booth, the opposite direction on the ramp, to get in here like this. I don't think a lot of people understand how dangerous these cars are. These things are 3,000-pound bombs. And it's so easy for anyone to get a license and drive one. Woo. Let's see if... All right.
Lives at risk.
Now, police are not releasing the name of the driver at this time. If you have any information, give state police a call. Reporting live in Bethlehem, Katie Catro, Channel 6, Action News.
Of course, they never released the name of the person who actually did it. Wow. So last time we had someone who drove off a ramp in Colorado and into the train tracks. This week we got someone driving the wrong way on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. We might have to have one of these per week. We got to think of a name for these people who are doing this craziness on the road. All right, for the last story, this one isn't necessarily a transportation thing, but it is something that we do talk about on this channel, which is areas that are growing or losing population. You know, I've done several videos about population growth, where people are moving to, where people are leaving, and we got a surprise. One of the fastest growing states in the country might be finally slowing down in growth. Let's take a look at that story.
People are moving to Tampa Bay. We had an active season last year.
Sure did. And according to a new study, affordability is really at the top of everyone's minds. Fox 13's Jennifer Vaglis, she is live for us in Tampa tonight. And Jen, we know that it's not just here in the Bay Area, but really the entire state of Florida, right?
Yeah, Ali, a big change from what we saw here around COVID. A local realtor and a moving company both tell me instead of moving people to Tampa, now they're moving people out of Tampa.
Sunshine, palm trees, and warm weather just aren't cutting it anymore.
Tampa and St. Pete area, once glamorous after COVID, now everyone, it's like a fire sale.
That's according to a report from Redfin released Wednesday. Tampa ranking the highest city in the Sun Belt, with the biggest change in net domestic migration between 2023 and 2024. The report states in 2023, nearly 35,000 people moved to Tampa. Let's go back. In the Sun Belt.
All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this so we understand exactly what is happening here. Now, Tampa isn't losing population. It's still growing. But what's happening is the Tampa area is slowing down in growth. If you guys recall, the past several years, Florida and Texas have been, and the metros in those states have been some of the fastest growing in the country. And if you look at this list, what we're seeing is that Tampa has seen the biggest change in growth as far as migration goes last year. Now, if you look at some of the other places on this list, now it is saying this is metro area, so this is entire Tampa Bay. This isn't just the Tampa city limits, which is great because that's how we really accurately measure these things, with metro area, not city population. So you see places that are slowing down. finally slowing down at least. Tampa, Dallas, Atlanta, Houston. Now, one thing that's interesting is that Miami was already, people are already leaving Miami. If you take a look at that one, and that underscores something else that I noticed about the American person as far as where they choose to move. Notice that Miami was already losing because one thing that's happened in Miami that people probably don't realize is that the Miami area has run out of land. There's no more land in the Miami metro area to build single family homes. So instead of building up, what Americans do is they just start moving out to places where they can keep getting homes. They don't build up, they move somewhere else. So instead of Miami continuing to grow, people are just choosing, well, I'm not going to live in Miami because I can't get a house anymore because there's no more room. And if we look at geography, we can see why. The Miami metro area is squeezed between the Atlantic Ocean and the Everglades. And that includes Broward and Palm Beach counties. And people are now moving out of these areas because you got a hard line right here where you cannot develop any more single family homes. So what was happening in Florida, since people could no longer get houses in Miami, is that people started moving to places like Tampa Bay, Orlando, Jacksonville, Ocala, stuff like that. But now, even Tampa is starting to slow down, is what they're showing in this article. And let's see what else is on the list. But yeah, look at it. It's pretty much most of the Texas metros are here. San Antonio, Fort Worth, Austin, and along with Atlanta. So is all that big growth for the South starting to slow down? Maybe so.
With the biggest change in net domestic migration between 2023 and 2024. The report states in 2023, nearly 35,000 people moved to Tampa. Last year, it was 10,000 people. Coldwell Banker realtor Jamie McKnight says this is not surprising. At the tail end of COVID,
that created, low inventory and then bidding wars.
Now it's a full 180. Cars and driveways are now replaced with for sale signs for a few reasons.
We have so much inventory, and the prices just skyrocketed. I mean, if you're a first-time home buyer, how are you affording a $500,000, barely 1,000 square foot home?
Plus, rising interest and insurance rates, especially after the hurricanes.
Now we've got an influx of flood damaged properties all over, and you have the flood flips that have been lovingly restored.
Daryl Fairweather with Redfin says costs for condo owners are no better.
Since the Surfside condo collapse, there has been new laws that require HOAs to charge more of condo owners.
Estimating HOA rates have gone up 15%. So more people are leaving town or even the state.
Tennessee, the Carolinas, and Georgia.
Wade Swickle, owner of 2 college.
Want to stop right there. You heard what she said? Tennessee, the Carolinas, and Georgia. We actually have a term for people like that. The people that move from the Northeast, they move from New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and stuff like that, Pennsylvania. They all want to go down to Florida. It's all sunny. It's warm, the beaches and the palm trees. Then they get down to Florida and they're like, it's too hot or it's too expensive or the hurricanes. And then they move halfway back to North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and you call that halfbacks. So people who move down to Florida, but then they go halfway back instead of going all the way back to the Northeast. And you've probably seen them because if you look at places in the Carolinas, especially Appalachia and some of the exurbs of Atlanta, far north Georgia, stuff like that, you got a lot of people from Florida who went to Florida, left Florida, then went up to those areas in the mountains of Appalachia and stuff like that, moving to the Carolinas or moving to Charlotte or Raleigh, things like that. So that's that halfback phenomenon. So Florida might be finally losing its luster, it seems.
Others moving sees the change too. In 2021,
we couldn't get enough trucks and enough people hired fast enough.
Halfway through 2023,
there was a period where every week I saw a moving company downsizing or closing their doors for good.
He even wrote a book about this time and staying strong through it. But he's optimistic the market here will bounce back.
I mean, the interest rates aren't going to be where they're at forever. The hurricanes hopefully aren't going to hit us again. And we believe we're going to ultimately come out stronger than we were when we came into it.
All right, guys, it looks like Florida might be finally slowing down, and Texas to a lesser degree. So if you guys live in Tampa, Orlando, or any of these Texas metros, let me know what you are seeing. Are you seeing less people coming out there? Are you seeing people who live there start to leave? Let me know in the comments. And all right, guys, that is going to do it for this week. Hope you enjoyed the topics of discussion. Let me know what you think about the various topics in the comments. Let me know if there's any stories that you want to see next time. We're also back this Friday with another interstate video. I'll let you guys be surprised when it drops on Friday. I'll give you one hint that it's a major interstate ending in 5. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.